very much for your, okay. So again, thank you very much for your participation in our webinar today. My name is Satoshi Takayama, one of the co-founder of our company, Fenetre Partners, and also an advisor for the industrial machinery and component sector in Japan. And here is another co-founder and the managing director, Yasushi Hasegawa. After I introduce our company, he will do the main part of this presentation. The topic of today's webinar is how to develop OEM customers in Japan. In this presentation, we will explain that your target is not the Japanese domestic market, but Japanese customers located all over the world. But before we start our webinar, I'd like to let you know that at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you can find Q&A panel, question and answer panel. So during our presentation, if you have questions about our presentations or Japanese business in general, please use this Q&A panel to ask your question. Then we will answer to your question during the presentation or at the last part of the presentation. Also, if you have questions about specific industry or about your company's business in Japan, please contact us by email to reserve a separate online meeting with us. You can find Yasushi's email address in his invitation email of this webinar. It is hasegawa@fenetre.co.jp. We are happy to answer to your questions and support you for the future business in Japan. And also after the webinar, if you'd like to have a presentation material, please send an email message to Yasushi, then we can send them to you later. And now this page shows today's agenda. Yasushi will explain why you should target Japan, understand your customer first, reality of marketing and sales activities in Japan, options of market entry models, case studies, and question and answer. Okay, then please go to the next page. Thank you. With this page, I'd like to introduce our company briefly. Our company, Fenetre Partners, is one of the leading consulting firms of trade, investment, and international marketing based in Tokyo. Our clients are medium to large size companies, mainly from the US and Europe. We also have many clients of overseas governmental organizations to support trade missions and foreign direct investment. The main scope of service is market entry support to enter Japan, not only by market researches or consulting, but by implementation. This implementation means, for example, business development and lead generation. And this is our company's strength. What we mainly do with this implementation is sales and marketing activities locally in Japan on behalf of our clients. So we work as if we are your local Japanese branch office. We currently have 32 staff, and we have worked on over 400 international projects since our company was established 15 years ago. Okay, then next page, please. This page shows logos of our past and current clients. As explained earlier, we have clients of mainly European and American manufacturing companies and also governmental organizations. Industries of our clients are mainly industrial machinery, components, automotive, like this. We also have companies, customers of consumer products. Then from next page, my colleague Yasushi will explain the main topic of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Takayama-san, for your introduction. I'm another co-founder of Fenetre Partners and the managing director, Yasushi Hasegawa. And it's a great pleasure for me to share our deep experiences with the Japanese market and also insights about market entry strategy into Japan. I hope you get some valuable information from my presentation today and also a hint for developing your market entry strategy in Japan or your business development strategy. So in this first section, I'd like to explain the overview of the society and economy of Japan, and because the Japanese market is somewhat tricky, so it could be the best destination for some companies, but it could be the worst choice for some types of companies. So I would like to give you the kind of information with the advantages and the disadvantages of this market. On this slide, I'd like to explain some key figures. Population is like this, roughly 1/3 of the US and a bit more than Germany. And the GDP is here. It's still ranked world number 3. But in the past 3 decades, we had almost no growth. Or I can say it's stable. Yeah. And the GDP growth is usually between 0% and 1%, almost nothing. And now I'm going to explain some shocking data. The first one is GDP per capita. Still, many people believe Japan is a rich country, but Japan was a rich country. In the past, like in 2002, Japan was ranked world number 2 in terms of GDP per capita. However, now it's ranked 20 or 30 in the same group with South Korea and Italy. So I have to say, Japan is not a very rich country anymore. Another shocking data is here. Our median age is getting close to 50 years old, so which is the second oldest country in the world. So I have to say, my country is getting poorer and poorer and older and older. So I hope you are still interested in developing your customers in Japan, but this is an overview of our economy and the society. So you can see the GDP chart. So we Japanese often say before bubble economy burst or after bubble economy burst. Actually, Japan was rapidly developing its economy in 1970s, 80s. However, it hit the ceiling in early 90s, and then almost flat. And we had some bottom. Not only Japan, but all the country had some damages caused by financial crisis in 2008, and Japan had the big earthquake in 2011 and COVID. So it's somewhat going up and down, but in the long term, it's flat. So you should not expect a high growth rate to the Japanese economy. And this chart shows the population of Japan. I think in 2008, our population has started to declining. And now we are losing 500,000 population every year. So it's a rapid decreasing population. And you can see the age group of 75 years or more and between 65 and 74. So this portion has been increasing like this. So now I can say roughly 2/3 of our population is supporting 1/3 elders. So this is a reality of demographics of Japan. As a result, many sectors for consumer products are shrinking rapidly. The A good example is the size of department store market. Now it's declined to less than half of its peak time. So if you like to sell your products at the department store in Japan, so I have to say your target market is rapidly shrinking. Maybe you should choose other markets like China, Indonesia, India. And this slide shows another good example. This is the number of sold car units a year. In early 90s, that was almost 8 million units per year, but now it's declined to 5 million. So it shows the reality of the consumer goods market of Japan. But I'd like to ask you, do you think that Japanese automotive companies are growing or shrinking? The answer is obviously the Japanese automotive companies are steadily growing. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Subaru, Mazda, Suzuki, all players are growing. You can see some secret. So actually, export is almost same with domestic sales. So that's why the number of production in Japan hasn't changed. So it's stable. At the same time, many Japanese automotive companies are developing factories all over the world. It's an overseas production, and this is their total production all over the world. So the Japanese domestic market is shrinking rapidly. However, automotive manufacturers are steadily growing. It highlighted our economy. I'm just explaining the automotive, but in many industrial fields, big Japanese companies are growing by export and global expansion. And this is our overseas sales ratio. In the past, that was 28%, but it's increased to roughly 40%. During the COVID period, it's declined, but now it's recovering. So gradually, Japanese manufacturers are developing their sales outside Japan. So, but it's for all sizes of manufacturers. When we talk about big manufacturers, obviously their overseas sales ratio is very high. You can find the famous name Honda, Nissan, Komatsu. Yeah, you can find many. So most of the big Japanese companies have sales over 80% from outside Japan. This is the reason why many Japanese big manufacturers are growing while our domestic market is shrinking. So when you plan your market entry into Japan, I recommend you should focus on your potential customers' growth and business size. But you don't need to pay attention on the domestic economy. In the case, you are focusing on selling to big Japanese manufacturers. And this is a very interesting research conducted by Ahaka Japan. Ahaka Japan is a Japan subsidiary of the Chamber of Commerce of Industry in Germany. So they distributed the questionnaires to its membership in Japan to ask which is bigger, A or B. B is a simple figure, the revenue from Japanese companies inside Japan. B is a group revenue from Japanese customers outside Japan. And surprisingly, almost half of membership answered A is greater than B. So they are doing business development in Japan, but they earn more outside Japan. More surprisingly, 21% answered A is 4 times bigger than B. So this is the reason why still many foreign companies are rushing to Japan. their purpose is not to develop a business only in Japan, but they like to develop Japanese customers globally, all over the world, like in the US, Europe, China, India. So now some of you guys may think you can directly sell to their subsidiary, like to Toyota USA. But probably some of you guys have experienced and try to sell to their subsidiary in the US or Europe. But usually they say, please go to Japan, our headquarters, because we don't have an authority to make a decision. So local people are allowed to purchase cheap or commodity products like spring, nut. So yeah, cheap one. However, for important component or equipment, always headquarters are decision makers. For example, autonomous driving software for automotive, safety sensor, some NG filter for eco-friendly. Those important components are always chosen by key engineers in headquarters. That's why you need to do business development in Japan if you like to have Japanese customers all over the world. And you will have some additional advantage. So probably many of you guys have developed customers in other Asian countries like China, India, Indonesia, Thailand. So if you do business development activities in such Asian countries, I believe you often encounter Japanese companies. There are extreme cases, Thailand. If you are selling automotive parts, you probably over half of automotive companies in Thailand are Japanese, but they don't purchase from you because the decision makers are in Japan. So this is our FDI stock statistics. Japan is #1 investor in China, the second in India, and also #1 in Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia. So it means you often encounter Japanese companies in such Asian markets. But if you don't do business development in Japan, probably Japanese companies there don't purchase from you. So this is our wrap up of this first session. Basically, we don't recommend the Japanese domestic market. So if we are selling consumer products differently, I don't recommend Japan to you. Many famous brands have withdrawn from Japan because this market is really tough. And the biggest cosmetic company, L'Oreal, in Europe, I think withdrew from Japan a few years ago from skincare sector. So it's really tough market for consumer goods players. However, if you are selling industrial products, like components, device, equipment, industrial software, definitely Japan is the best destination. I recommend Japan to such industrial players. Furthermore, you can find business opportunities in healthcare sector and the alternative energy sector. The reason of business opportunities in healthcare is simply aging population. Now, a wide range of healthcare solution is demanded, like remote healthcare system or some IoT device to monitor our health conditions. And for alternative energy, actually, most of the nuclear plants in Japan are not operating right now. So that's why if you have a unique technology or solution in this field, you will have many business opportunities.
Yasushi, sorry to disturb, but I found that no one is posting the question in using the Q&A panel. So I'd like to remind you that that you can ask questions using Q&A panel. I think you can use it. And also, Yasushi, the chat box is not available this time, so I cannot send chat messages to the
Oh, really?
participants. Maybe you can set something so that I can send messages to all the participants. If it doesn't work, it's okay. Your message only to the host and panelists. But I just wanted to remind. Or the reminder that please use Q&A panel to ask questions. You can do that. Sorry, I cannot do that. So, okay, good. So, Yasushi, please continue. Thank you.
Now I'd like to start explaining some business culture of a big Japanese company.
Good.
So I'd like to explain some HR and career in Japan. It's very different from the North America and Europe. Usually, we are supposed to enter a company as a new graduate at the age of 22 or 3, and the salary gradually increases like this, and at some point, it will start declining. And most of Japanese companies have same retirement allowance at the age of 65 nowadays. And the problem is this salary is decided on how many years you have spent for the same employer. So your performance doesn't matter. And if you perform very well, you can be a manager at the age of 40 something, and senior manager at the age of 50 something, and maybe at 60 years old, C-level, like this. So, most of our employees working in the big organization keep working for the same employer for over 40 years. I know it's very, strange for Americans and Europeans. So I'd like to understand this culture behind your customers' decision making. So they have no reason to take a risk because the promotion was made on how many years they spent. So usually they don't take risk, and sometimes doing nothing is the best strategy for them to keep their position. So that's why Japanese customers don't want to take risks. And this is our organizational culture. Sometimes we receive an inquiry that they like to meet with high-level people, with some automotive companies or electronics companies. But I often say it's meaningless because in the big Japanese companies, decision-making system is a sort of middle up and down, which may sound not familiar to you because usually you say top down or bottom up. But in Japan, middle managers are super busy and they are usually key people. However, they cannot make a decision on by own, so they have to make consensus to talk with another middle managers, their staff, and need to get approval from higher level. So when you try to develop a Japanese customer, you have to meet key person in middle. That is very important. And top people are sort of ownable posts or sinecure. So sometimes they do nothing. And if you have a chance to meet some of them, probably they will forward your name card to someone, and you can do whatever you like. So it's usually meaningless to meet with very high-level people. And again, decision-making is on consensus base. In the US, I believe, usually a top management is a decision maker, and everybody should follow him. But in Japan, it's really complicated. Everyone needs to talk, discussion, get an approval. It's really tough. And some important things are decided in the backroom deal. sometimes at the bar with drinking beer. So sometimes when you give a presentation to your customer, decision has been already made. So presentation skill is not very important in Japan. So this is our culture. And I think it's a famous framework to compare different culture. This is a cultural dimension developed by Hosset. So you can see very high score of Japan in 3 dimensions: masculinity, certainty, avoidance, and long-term orientation. So I think Japan has the highest score all over the world in these 3 dimensions. The first one, masculinity, shows the culture of organization. We Japanese don't hesitate to keep working until late night. Sometimes we don't sleep until we have achieved our objectives. It's very masculine, and we are supposed to sacrifice my personal life and my family. So that is a typical Japanese culture. And this score is usually low, very low in Latin America or Latin Europe, where people are feminine and they prioritize family life and personal life. And the next one is uncertainty avoidance. So simply, most Japanese people are risk averse. They don't want to take risks. While the US has a low score, it means many Americans don't hesitate taking risks. Germany has in between. And another one is a long-term orientation. Germany also has a high score, almost same with Japan. So people prefer to keep working together with the same supplier or employees for many years, while Americans are working in the dog years, very short-term oriented. So those 3 dimensions are tough entry barriers because your Japanese competitors are super masculine. They already say yes sir to their important customers. They accept any kind of request from those big manufacturers, and your customers don't want to take risk. Usually they don't want to replace existing products with new ones, and they prefer to keep working together with same suppliers. So culturally, it's very difficult to make some replacement with new technology. And this culture was made during the samurai era. So, of course, this culture is not valid anymore, but I think it abolished 150 years ago, recently. So it means we are responsible for what we did and what we said. That's why our culture is masculine, and also we are risk averse because we don't want to commit suicide. So we still have that kind of obsession in our mind. So nowadays we don't need to commit suicide, but mentally we have to do that. So in the next session, I'd like to explain some reality of marketing and sales activities in Japan. There are a lot of entry barriers. The first one is language. Probably you have tried to write an email in English to a Japanese company. Usually they ignore that, or simply they can't read it. And I don't recommend you make phone calls in English. You just make them panic. And when you work with a Japanese customer, all documents must be written in Japanese. Sometimes, luckily, you encounter an English speaker in the Japanese company, but usually their bosses or his colleagues don't understand English. And of course, services must be provided in Japanese language. And this slide shows some difference about our sales process between Japan and open and flexible country. I don't say where it is, but you can imagine some companies in Latin places. Usually in the open mind country, people are open to have an open discussion. So it's easy to make an appointment for this kind of open discussion, first meeting. And then you will have some technical QA and reach an agreement. However, in Japan, we need to spend a lot of time to reach right person because their contact information is not disclosed. We need to talk to a gatekeeper in order to pass them and to find the junior level. And the junior level will ask you a lot of questions, technical things. And after many email exchanges about the QA, they will accept your meeting offer. But the first meeting is usually greetings. They will give you their company presentation and we will do the same and have some small Q&A. It's like a ritual. And then a lot of internal negotiations happen in the organization, and you are also required to join meetings. So it takes a long time to reach an agreement. However, I can say, after making an agreement, in this type of countries, there are a lot of changes. They ignore some specification. Suddenly, they change or, they may cancel. But in Japan, everything goes smoothly. It's solid. So of course, there's a pros and cons in each country. However, you need to understand very long process of sales activities. For communication, the first one, indirect message is an obstacle for people from North America and Europe. This is a comparison of communication way, low context versus high context. Low context means everything is explicit. You speak directly. And the high context means important messages are between the lines. People don't speak directly. So Germans, Americans, Scandinavians are here, very direct, logical, clear, but we are here opposite. So probably some of you guys have an experience. You asked to a Japanese business person, are you interested in our products? Everybody say yes. Yes, but yes means not no. So it's really complicated. And usually Japanese people do a lot of sugarcoating, especially to a foreigner, because they like to avoid a conflict with you, especially in front of you in English. So they usually say, positive things to you in front of you, but later on, they will ignore your following up emails. So be careful. They are too polite and too kind. So usually they have different things in their mind. And they don't like to have a discussion in detail, especially in English. And they prefer documents in detail. Email exchanges are preferred usually. So it seems not efficient for German or American, I think. And another entry barrier is a distribution channel structure. Probably some of you guys have heard this term, KRETS. KRETS means the exclusive supply chain network. Usually, like Toyota, Honda, such big manufacturers have their own exclusive supply chain network. In this case, tier one supplier to Toyota is not allowed to sell to Honda. It's very exclusive. Several years ago, Honda, Nissan announced they terminated the KRETS exclusive supply chain network. However, this culture exists. And for Toyota, they still have a very strict exclusive supply chain. So it's really difficult to get into a business with Toyota. And the relationship is very hierarchical. But there's a proverb in Japan, a customer is God. So they look very polite on surface, but they are really arrogant. So you cannot say no to your God. So they request a lot of things. You should not say no. You need to respond in the Japanese way. So important message should be between the lines. Probably you can say, it's really tough, but let me talk with our engineering team or something. Yeah, you should not say no. And the personal relationship is very important. The most important thing is you have to make them feel safe, especially in the case of technical trouble. If they cannot trust you, they never place an order to you. And in the past, we are supposed to visit Japanese customers very often. During the COVID, it has changed a bit. Maybe some small updates can be discussed online. However, you are still supposed to visit their office or factory, like once a quarter or once a month. It depends. And the quality requirements are really strict in Japan. So all we are a sort of perfectionists, because if we make something wrong, we have to commit suicide, of course, mentally. So people try to avoid making mistakes. That is our culture. So that's why people have micromanagement. So this is a good example. This is a specification provided by European companies to a Chinese factory. This is an outsource of manufacturing of this type of product. You can see very simple specification, right? And this is a specification from a Japanese company to the same Chinese factory. These products are almost same. However, way of making specification is like this. So usually they are annoying you. And as far as I know, German engineers really don't like this way. So if you are working as an international business development person, a manager, your important job is to make your engineers understand this cultural difference. Okay, and now I'm going to explain some options of market entry into Japan. So Japanese market is really tough, but there are some options to penetrate the market. When we talk about market entry strategy, I'd like you to be aware the difference about the economic development stage. This is a famous framework, industry or product life cycle. When the market is growing, many companies are rushing to the market. At the growth stage, demand is strong. That's why there are opportunities to supply. Many new market enters are rushing to such growing markets. Actually, Japan was on that stage, growing stage in 1970s, 80s, and 90s. And then the growth hit the ceiling. Now we are at the stage of mature stage or somewhat declining, especially some traditional industries. In such case, competition is usually very stable. The market is dominated by several strong players. In Japan, mainly several strong Japanese companies and some European or American companies dominate the market, which is so-called as oligopoly. So in such case, usually local distributors are not active to source new products because markets are almost fixed. So usually they hesitate. It's different. At the growing stage, you can easily find very entrepreneurial small distributors. They are really active to find new products in order to meet the growing demand. However, in Japan, sometimes you will see the opposite thing. Some distributors are trying to reduce the number of suppliers and inventory in order to meet the shrinking demand. Their biggest concern is cost reduction. In such case, if I bring a new product to them, they will say, huh? So it often happens in some traditional industries in Japan. So I'd like to understand your strategy, which works very well in growing market, usually doesn't work in Japan because the economic stage, development stage is very different. So, and I'd like to explain a case study about automotive and some commercial vehicle. This is a case of American engine filter producer. Their target customers are construction machinery and commercial vehicles. And they asked the US Embassy to arrange meetings with some distributors. And they met the distributor, but nothing happens. So the reason is here. Oh, sorry. In this industry, in the automotive or commercial vehicle, the role of distributor is just-in-time delivery, and they usually don't promote a particular product. So usually this guy has a big warehouse next to end user A's factory, and they stock thousands of different types of products and deliver it on just-in-time delivery. So promoting a particular company product is meaningless for this distributor because now they are providing your competitor's product to end user A. So if they replace the existing one with yours, probably the profit wouldn't change dramatically. So they will say either will be fine, as far as end user A is happy with that product. So in this industry, you have to do sales activities directly to end user A, like to Toyota, Komatsu, Suzuki, and you need to have a technical discussion with end user A's engineer. And after making an agreement, you should arrange delivery with this guy, distributor. So in some industries in Japan, you cannot find a good distributor due to this type of complicated distribution channel structure. And in some industries, there are several layers between end user and suppliers. So that's why in Japan, just finding a local distributor wouldn't be a best solution for you to be successful in Japan. So this is a framework to compare different entry modes. So as far as I know, everybody loves trade. You just find a local distributor and semi-automatically your products are sold through a distributor. So risk is low. However, control is also low because they work for their own interests. And in Japan, or in mature market, usually a distributor is selling hundreds or thousands of different products. And they have no reason to promote a particular product. So if they think it can be sold well, they may make some efforts to promote your products, but usually they don't make a lot of efforts. So you can't control well. On the opposite side, direct investment. Of course, if you set up your own office in Japan, you can control everything. However, the risk is high. If you set up your own office in Japan and hire a bilingual manager, some sales staff assistant, probably you are required to pay $500,000 US at least. And in some industries, it takes a few years to get the first sales, like in automotive, because of their product development cycle, it takes a few years. So spending $500,000 in 3 years row without sales revenue would be a nightmare for you. So it's difficult to choose this option without a decent level of sales revenue in Japan. And this option is not powerful because you can't control your business in Japan. So usually I recommend this space. I will let you know this option later. However, I know many of you guys don't want to take big risk at the beginning of your market entry, and you prefer trade. Of course, there are some advantages over working together with the local distributor, because you can get the first market experience easily. Again, low investment, low risk, and you can take advantage of their existing customer base. So it's a good start if you don't have any businesses in Japan. Our firm sometimes work on B2B business marketing with potential distributors, and I believe it's a good first step for you. However, there are a lot of disadvantages. You can't make a good relationship with a Japanese customer directly. And it's very difficult to have a deep technical discussion. And usually, distributors don't disclose important information, including contact information of key people. You can't get some market information. And again, they often do sugar coating, so, or they mitigate. So you cannot get a clear view of the market. And Japan is a big market. Usually, one distributor cannot cover all the your target industries or all the applications. And it's difficult to control their sales activities and user pricing as well. And at the beginning of your market entry, usually your service level will be low. And this way is not effective for selling your products to Japanese companies outside Japan, because it's none of their business for local distributors. And the biggest problem is you never know the reason in the case your business doesn't grow in Japan. So again, trade or finding a local distributor would be the good first step. However, the sales hit the ceiling very soon. So you need to combine different options for supporting your growth. Now I'm going to explain some case studies. So usually, when you talk about market entry, you prefer start from market research. It's theory. However, if you are selling complicated industrial products, which are usually customized, I don't recommend spending time and money for market research, because it's difficult to reach a key engineer in your target organization. For example, in Toyota, can you guess how many engineers does the company have? Maybe tens of thousands, and you are selling some safety sensor, and reaching that particular engineer requires a lot of time, maybe a few months or several months. And most of them reject your interview offer because our culture is super conservative, cautious. They usually say we cannot speak such confidential things to a consultant or a researcher. Even you can have an appointment. Usually they don't speak honestly, so you cannot get the real information. So only one way to judge the marketability is a direct discussion between your engineers and your customers' engineers. So our recommendation is test marketing instead of market research. You try to sell your product to your potential customers and have initial technical discussion, and then you will get a direct market response. So again, I don't recommend market research for industrial players, but we recommend test marketing with deep technical discussion with your customers' engineers. So this is case one. The client is a European component suppliers for plant equipment. What we did is very simple. We made an agreement with that company that we represent their sales activities in Japan. So we acted like their local sales in Japan. And our staff had the product training, and we translated all the marketing material, and we do research to identify potential customers. And we started contacting target companies and had a technical discussion. And we found big challenges. So Japanese regulation of voltage is very different. And they realize they need to invest 1 million for adapting to this 100 voltage in Japan, which is not a good idea for our customer, especially at the beginning of market entry. And we found strongest local competitor has advantages in both quality and price. So it sounds not promising at all. However, our staff had a lot of discussion with potential customers and found a way. And this is our solution. This is our client. And this is a Japanese customers. So there's a voltage issue. Products used in Japan can't adapt their products. So the solution was this Japanese companies export their products to overseas, like Middle East or Southeast Asia, because their plant equipment is used for oil and gas industry. In this case, Japanese voltage standard doesn't matter because the final products are used in different countries. And our client has a strong maintenance network in Middle East and Southeast Asia. That's why they focus on export market from Japan to overseas. And they won a lot of business, even though their competitor has advantages in both quality and price. They won projects due to their strong maintenance network in Middle East and Southeast Asia. So, and finally, they hired a Japanese speaker and sent him as an expert to Japan. And we also started to working for that company for finding M&A candidates. So now they have increased sales revenue and keep developing more customers in Japan, especially for the export market from Japan to other countries. So probably normal market research can't reveal this industry structure. The reason why we reached this conclusion is we had many technical discussions with engineers in many potential Japanese customers. So this case is like this. We charge several thousand USD per month for a part-time basis, like 60 hours per month. And we assign one salesperson who develops Japanese customers. So the risk is somewhat low to middle because the monthly fee incurs. However, they got the control because the agreement between our company and the client regulates. We have to report everything, and we follow their command. So this is our outsourcing-based contract over business development activities in Japan. So I usually recommend this approach for a new market entrant. And then you can go to the next step, direct investment. You set up your office and hire local talent directly. After you have found opportunities and developed the projects and your sales reach the certain degree. This is a second case. Components for industrial electronics. They are from Germany. And what we did is same with the previous case. And the challenges are our client has a wide range of products and cover a wide range of applications and industries. And we found a good distributor, but had no idea about the target segmentation. So what we did is same. We visited many Japanese potential customers and finally found this client can compete in industry 3 with product B. And distributor started focusing on this segment, developed many customers, and they increased sales revenue dramatically in Japan. And also they had the chance to deliver to a Japanese customer in China. So business development are done in Japan, but the delivery happened in China. And finally, the owner of this Japanese distributor purchased a small share of our client. It means their relationship has been very close. This is another good example. Their case is the same. We worked as their sales rep on the retainer base with receiving several US dollar monthly, and we developed a Japanese local distributor and worked together. And then finally, after 8 or 9 years, the distributor and the client made a decision to have more close relationship, and they terminated the contract with us, unfortunately or happily. It's somewhat sad, but at the same time, we are really proud of their success. So this is a recommendation from my side. If you are selling industrial goods, you should not waste your money for research and consulting. So I recommend test marketing and strategy planning at the same time, because only deep technical discussion can reveal the marketability of your products in Japan. So, and we recommend you do it on outsourcing basis with a third party like a firm. And you can go to the next step, FDI, M&A, or any, after you have found good opportunities in Japan. So this is the end of my presentation. Our main strength is here. We do business development in Japan on behalf of our clients, but at the same time, we support market research or business matching with the distributor if you don't have any businesses in Japan. So please feel free to talk to me if you need our help for your business development in Japan in the near future. I hope you got some new insights from my presentation, and hopefully I have a chance to work with some of you guys in the near future. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much, Yasushi, for your presentation. So during Yasu's presentation, we received more than 15 questions, and I have actually already answered all the questions. So, and it actually now it's time to close the webinar today. So maybe how about sharing one typical question from our overseas client.
Okay.
For example, the question which often received is that how much does it cost to set up a corporation in Japan per year? I think that's a quite typical question from our clients.
Okay.
So how much do you think?
For example, if you hire one bilingual manager with technical background and rent a small office, maybe $250,000 would be required at least. And if you like to have a small team, like a manager, one administrative assistant, 2 salespeople, probably you need to pay $500,000.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh yes, and so for the future further questions, please. Now it's already time to close. So if you have any questions, please send an email to Yasushi. His email address is hasegawa@fenetre.co.jp. You can find this email in the Zoom invitation, I think. Then we are always happy to answer to you and support your company to develop the business with Japanese customers.
And
so yes.
Also,
yes.
I'd like to make an announcement about our next webinar on June 13th, Tuesday. We invite 2 guest speakers, our clients, and you can hear what they experienced together with us. So if you are interested, please feel free to register. I look forward to your participation.
Yeah. Yes, please participate in the webinar next week as well. So we'd like to thank you very much for your time to join our webinar. And again, please feel free to contact us by email if you have any questions about the business in Japan or to reserve an online separate meeting with us. We are very much looking forward to receiving your message and answer to your questions and support your business. Okay, then thank you very much. Okay, then
Thank you very much.
bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.